I'm Dean Newland, and welcome to Leadovation. Reimagine, facilitate, flourish. This podcast is dedicated to the art and science of innovative leadership. Through insightful interviews with industry experts, I bring you cutting-edge strategies and experiences of innovative leadership, helping you think differently, act strategically, and achieve remarkable results. Join me as I provide insights and tools that empower you to make smarter decisions, forge meaningful relationships. Welcome to Leadovation. Today, I'm joined by Torrie Taj, CEO of Child Crisis Arizona, for a powerful conversation about leadership, purpose, and impact. She shares a story about reconnecting with a child she once served 15 years later, who told her that the very best of his life was when someone finally demonstrated that they cared, and what an impact it made as an adult. We talked about nonprofit leadership, compassion, fatigue, collaboration, and why margin for mission actually matters. This episode will challenge you to rethink how you lead, whether you're part of a nonprofit or a for-profit organization, and how much your presence really matters. So, Torrie, super excited to have you on this show. You know, between you and I, it was so much fun to get to know you in a very sort of serendipitous way, through a common friend and colleague who just suggested, hey, you should know this person. And we had a nice chat. And then you said, oh, yeah, I'm packing up for a trip up to Bend, Oregon, and I couldn't believe it. And we ended up having a wonderful dinner with you and your partner. And hence this friendship has been spawned. So I'm so glad to have you on the show.
Thank you for the invitation. Yeah, it's kind of funny how small the world really is.
Really is. Yeah. So I was reflecting on a board chair position I had several years ago with an organization down in Phoenix called Workshops for Youth and Families. And the whole mission of that was to teach leadership skills between the age of 9 and 19. And I was very much into it because of our work with leadership with adults. I thought, man, wouldn't it be great to get to these principles when you're much earlier? And because obviously you can change an adult who's 40, 50, 60, but it's a lot easier to make these impressions when these are younger people. So I was very much into that. And so we saw all sorts of benefits from that. Hence, that's moved on and it's now part of another organization. But could you kind of set the table for us? What's the work that you do, and what sort of long-term data are you seeing as a result of that work? Especially, I mean, you're working with children, but what happens when your kind of work lands, and how does it show up later, in that person's life?
Yeah. So that's a lot of questions there,
I
Dean.
know.
And
Sorry, it's
so
my lead-in. I have
that's
a hard time with
okay. I
lead-ins.
know that. The work that I get to do is, running this great organization that supports children and families. The vision is simple, 4 words. It's safe kids and strong families. And the importance of this work, um, it's hard to describe. There are lots of stories, testimonials about children who enter the foster care system and have, a wonderful experience, not at the time they enter, but later on in life, they're able to come back and say, because of this foster family that cared for me, because I was adopted, because looking back, years later, this was the best thing that could have happened to me. So there are those kind of testimonials and stories and individuals that come back, 10, 20 years later and tell us the difference that this type of an organization can make in their life.
Do you have one in particular that you love to tell?
Mm, there are so many. There's one that kind of takes me back to when I was a 22-year-old and just, working in my first shelter situation. So I could talk about that story.
Go
Um,
for it.
yeah, so recent graduate from college, wanting to make a difference, working in this shelter system, all I really know is it's the safety net for children who are taken from their homes due to abuse or neglect. So the
Hmm.
shelter system, the foster care system, every state has one. You need one. At that time, children would come in and be in the system, congregate care for about 18 months on average. So it was a long time. I go back to this story that really resonated with me and just kind of imprinted. Um, James and his brother came in, and I remember, everything from the cigarette burns to the scabies on their skin and the conjunctivitis and the you could see the physical abuse that they
Hmm.
had had, but um, the look in their eyes, um, they were unable to be as verbal as one would want, have that eye contact, and that really stuck with me. And over
Hmm.
the 18 months that I remember these two brothers that were there, but especially James, they had all sorts of physical things going on and trauma their entire life. And um, I really remember James, and he had an inhaler, lots of physical things going on, lots of medications for both of them. And um, I just remembered how he would always have these asthma attacks and how they changed over 18 months. I come back to the story because at the time I didn't know what kind of impression that living in a shelter and being in the foster system would have on James and his brother. Fast forward, I'd say about 15 years later, I'm running an emergency men's transitional housing program, and I'm giving a tour to somebody at the Department of Housing, asking for $1 million because we had holes in the roof, and I needed an AC system and a new roof, and doing the ask. And this man is following me around as I'm
Oops.
giving the tour of this transitional housing, and at the end, the director and my CEO at the time is like, "Do you know this man?
Hmm.
Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Well, he looks a little familiar." He came up to me, and that was my aha moment. 15 years later, James was no longer, a
Tori, can you hear
10-year-old
me?
boy in shelter. It was James in this transitional housing facility, and he was able to um, come and thank me and say, "Oh my gosh, you're Tori Allen." And that was my maiden name at the time. And the difference that you made with staff was absolutely amazing. So it was one of those situations where it was an aha moment that we are making a difference.
Hi. I think we
What
got
happened?
disconnected there. I don't know. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, I lost you, and you probably lost me too. What we'll probably just have to do is edit out wherever that blank was, and the guys and gals who work with us will make sure that happens. So,
Okay.
um, because I lost you somewhere in the middle of that story,
I have no idea because then you just kind of froze, and I'm like,
Yeah,
ah,
that's not good. Yeah.
no.
So maybe let me backtrack here back to the question, and I'll let you answer it. So the question really was, can you share a story that really resonated with you that you still like to tell, and maybe if you could start over from there.
Okay. So I go back to my first shelter experience that really stayed with me. It was the story of James and his brother. They came into the shelter, taken from their home due to abuse or neglect. And they came in not great eye contact, a lot of physical issues. You could see from cigarette burns to bruises to, skin conditions, conjunctivitis, all the things that children come in the system with. And at the time, I didn't know how impactful the work really was going to be that I was doing. I was working as a behavioral health technician in a shelter, caring for children and giving them kind of their basic, needs, taking care of their basic needs, making sure they go to school and eat healthy and get exercise and all the things. Over that 18 months, that James and his brothers stayed in the shelter, we saw significant improvements. Eye contact, verbalizing, getting healthy, and just progression. Severe trauma. I fast forward to at least 15 years after that time. I'm running a men's transitional center, giving a tour. There's a man kind of following me around on the tour, and the people I'm with, like, do you know him? I'm like, no, he's just one of our clients. He's one of our residents. He's in this 2-year transitional programming. And that's it. He comes up after, excuse me. And I knew it was James.
Huh.
And he was so thankful. And it was like, oh my gosh, where did 15 years go? James, it's you. And he's like, and you're Torrie. And tears immediately. And it was just one of those moments where, wow. And I said, what are you doing here? He's like, I'm living in this program here. And I'm with this group. And he then goes on to say, I just had to come over and thank you. I'm like, thank me. He's like, you can't make this stuff up. I will never forget how kind you were. And how is Lance and Dee? And he named off all of the employees that I worked with at the time.
Wow.
And he remembered us because we were his family for that year and a half. And he said, he continued on, how's your brother? Do you still have bad asthma? That was something I just asked because I remembered how bad it was. He's like, one of the things that stuck with me is that, the best year of my life is when we lived in that shelter. And we had Christmas.
Best
and
year in my life was
when
living
we lived in that
a shelter. I just want to underline what you just said. Wow.
Yeah. And so those are the stories. That's one of many that stick with me. 15 years later, he's saying, I'm in this, program, and I bounced in and out of foster care and, lots of different homes, but the best time of my life. And he remembered my name and all of the other staff. And then he thanked me for spending the night in the hospital with him. He recalled that, my shift was done and I spent the night in the hospital with him. So he said he would never forget that. And that is just one of many stories that continue to come back to me.
I have this sort of non-scientific statistic or hypothesis that we are only aware of about 30% of the influence that we have on others, and the other 70% we're completely blind to. But it's so wonderful when somebody like that comes up and puts that light onto and the impact that you made that you would have never known. So Torrie, why did you get into this? I mean, that's a great story. I could see why somebody would want to do that, but it has to start somewhere. What was the spark that started you on this path?
I think I grew up in a family where volunteering was important. That's part of it. And I recall a trip in junior high, and it was a mission trip on the First United Methodist Church of South Dakota, in Aberdeen, South Dakota. And we did this mission trip where I signed up with a lot of other, kids in junior high and high school to go on a school bus without air conditioning during the summer from South Dakota all the way to New Mexico, remote area in New Mexico. And we didn't know what we were going to do, but we were there to help, build walls, put a roof on, do a wheelchair ramp, take care of kids, and be in this, service to others that summer. And I remember thinking, like, we are not qualified to be doing stucco walls, and it's going to be crooked and sideways, and seeing these children. They spoke in Spanish, and I think that's partially my love for speaking Spanish. And they were so happy. But at the same time, were doing this work, and we would come back and in our groups talk about, um, the life is not fair, and the
Yeah.
families you are born into. Um, it's really not up to those children. And seeing their happiness and then feeling this great sense of responsibility of I can make a difference with all kids.
That's great. We were and we still do some work with Blue Zones, and I was talking to somebody who used to work there, who had just come back from a mission of a sort, a religious mission down in Africa somewhere. And so she's dealing with ultra poor communities, but she said what really struck me was the joy and the happiness and the community that they had for each other and with each other, which is completely upside down to how we in the West and how we in the United States think about what is happiness. It's the acquisition of things, it's the monetization of things, and yet some of the most poorest people in the world can teach us a thing or two about what real value is.
For sure. And those kids didn't know that it wasn't standard to have a floor. There was
Yeah,
dirt on the
yeah,
floor.
that's
There was
just
no
normal.
electricity in these houses. And
Wow.
I came away from that and came home and, cried to my parents saying, they're never going to have piano lessons. And like, I was able to take ballet lessons and tap dancing and jazz lessons and middle class family. And you know what? It's not fair that they're not going to be able to have that opportunity and participate in all the things. And so I
Yeah.
think, like in the back of my mind, that was always the driver. Let's equalize the playing field for some of these children and families.
So fast forward to where you are now, CEO of this great organization in Phoenix, well respected. Is the playing field for these kids and these families getting better, or given our current situation in the world, getting worse?
Mm, yeah,
What's
that's
your
a
data tell you?
that's a loaded question.
I know.
I don't think it's getting any better. And
Yeah.
as the population grows in Arizona, the need for services, and hence, we've really had to grow the last decade that I've been at this organization. We've really had to step up and do more, and the numbers are just there. And so, I wish I could work myself out of a job, um, but it's just not going to happen.
So, how many families, kids do you serve on average in a year?
Mm. Thousands, maybe 10,000. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean they all live with us in our
Right.
shelters,
Understood.
group homes. It could be they are in foster care, they're aging out of foster care, but um, there are so many. And while we feel great about what we're doing right now, it's not enough. And we
So,
need to continue.
yeah. You obviously have to keep the mental health of your staff and your board and all the people that volunteer for you up and positive and moving forward, given what you see every day. And then when we think about where we are today, what is it, the 27th of January, 2026, one could say without too much trouble that we're in a period of great disruption nationally and locally and internationally. I mean, it's wild out there. What do you tell your staff and your board, given the external world, its pressures, its frustrations, its fear around how to persevere during this time?
Yeah.
What's your message?
Mm. It cannot be fear, even though that can drive us. It cannot be fear. And I think through what you and I both get to do with being an executive coach and the whole coaching world, it's I have the gift, you have the gift, others have the gift of being able to reframe things.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's our role as a leader, sometimes reframing that fear or that scarcity approach to abundance. And so I think that's the message that I try and bring back as often as I can to the employees. Compassion fatigue is a real thing. to our board, to others in the community, my, colleagues, and hope, hope.
Hmm. Do people join and volunteer sometimes for nonprofits, not just for the mission that it represents, but because they want that mission to wash over them and change them as well?
Yes, it absolutely can. And they feel good. And, that vitamin G giving, whether
That's
it's
good. I like that.
volunteering, it's
I
vitamin
g
G. Yeah.
I like that.
And
That's there's your book right there, Tori.
it's my future. Yeah. Vitamin G. It is.
Vitamin G, the secret to great leadership in a nonprofit in a profit world. That's
It's
good.
giving. It's giving of
Yeah.
ourselves. It's giving something and
Yeah.
feeling part of the greater good.
Yeah. That's great. I guess where I'm also wanted to follow up with that question is I've noticed, at least in working with nonprofits, of which we've done quite a few over the years, is that when somebody decides to work for ExxonMobil, which we've done, we've worked with them. The expectation, or what I'm trying to say, the mission of ExxonMobil is obviously very different than an organization like yours, right? And so when we walk into an ExxonMobil and we realize that this place has got its own normal sort of dysfunctions that take place in organizations, we kind of go like, yeah, that's just what work is, right? We just sort of expect that there will be this drama over here. This leader may not be very good at communicating. It's sort of what we sign up for. We're not surprised by it. I've at least noticed, and I'm curious what your thoughts is, that when we sometimes join nonprofits who are extremely mission focused, even mission focused around culture, that we sometimes get disappointed to realize that we're still humans and it's not as rosy as we thought. The mission is still what it is. It's still the great place that we're heading towards, but the reality is we're still dealing with people. How do you lead your team, your board, who are so focused on the purpose of the organization, meanwhile managing the human side?
Yeah. So I think that's where your heart and your head come in, and people join us because of their hearts.
Mm,
They apply for that job because they want to make a difference, and it's the heart, right?
mm,
But I can't let that overpower the head, because if there's no margin
mm,
financially, there's no mission. And so you can't let the hearts overpower the head, and it's got to be this like balance. And actually, you can lead from the heart, but the head has to be the most important piece, because often what I see in the nonprofit, sector, which I like to call the social benefit sector,
mm,
nonprofit doesn't mean you can't have a profit, because when you think that way, nonprofit is just an IRS tax status. And when you think about nonprofit, you might think, oh, that daycare in the church basement. Nothing wrong with that. Or that organization on a shoestring budget. And when you think that way, that's scarcity approach, that's fear based. And where I come in is, again, reframing that to no, we have a big responsibility. And it's not just to serve these kids 10%, it's to serve these kids at 110% and continue so that they're going to be successful for a long time. So, really, the margin over the mission, even though you start this work because of your heart, but you have to balance it with the idea that it takes money and it's okay. And if you truly believe in what you're doing, you're going to attract that money and be able to do the work you want to do.
yeah, we're both on the same page on this. We've had discussions about this, but I wanted to bring it to light again because I know that there are people who volunteer their time, who give their money to nonprofits, and we have a whole sort of paradigm around that there can be no profit, there can be no margin, that we have to bring everything as possible down to the recipient. And we talk about that all the time. No overhead. My dollars, every $100 that I'm giving every dollar is going to the person that we're trying to serve.
Yeah.
None of it's going to marketing overhead, people like you, other people. Are there other ways that you've been able to help people realize that profit can do a lot of good for a nonprofit status organization?
Yeah. Yeah. Great point. So, yeah, there are the three sectors. One, government, we use power and rules and law and order. The second, business, corporate America, and driven by the green stuff, the money, the, stock price, the shareholders' return. That's not a bad thing. We need that. We need government. We need the business. And then there's this nonprofit sector, the third sector, which again, I like to call it the community benefit corporation, community benefit organization. It takes that idea that, there can't be profit out of it. There has to be profit. You need to give your employees an increase every year. You want to have the 401k to attract the best people. You need to be able to have a profit so at the end of the year you can grow XYZ said program. And so you have to be able to think like that. So when I look at the three sectors, we're all needed, we are all driven by different categories, but we're all businesses.
Hmm.
And I think when you explain it that way, people understand the money, the profit, we even budget for a surplus every year. If you
Hmm.
don't budget for a surplus, you're never going to be able to grow. When you don't grow your services, your company, your organization is going to die. So we budget for, and it's really important to have those surpluses so you can pour those dollars back into the services, the programs, the innovation that's needed in this space to do whatever it is you do for the community.
I've always thought that it's hard to fake it. Meaning, if you are a salesperson and you're providing great service, it's hard to provide great service if you yourself do not know what that feels like as a recipient.
Hmm.
There is I think, a growing sort of distinction in the world of OD and so forth around human experience, where you've got the employee experience on one side, and you've got the customer experience on the other side, and those two are actually married to one another. How are you, in addition to what you just said, increasing the experience of your employees, your board, so that they can bring that heart that you talk about before into the work that they do that's authentic? Because we are also the product of the product. We're not just the delivery mechanism of it.
Yeah. Again, it's that attraction. I think being in alignment with the mission of the organization is definitely the most important thing. And if individuals are on a board just because they want to be on a board and feel like they're doing something but not in alignment with the mission, it's not going to work. And so
Hmm.
I think being really clear to our employees, here are the 7 values that we have at our organization. Here is what our mission and our vision is. And you can have all the skills in the world. And if you're not in alignment with the values of the company and the mission and the vision, it's not going to be a good place for you to work. And we want to make sure that we are having the best matches with the board also. And so that needs to be first and foremost. Although, we look for those board members who, have time, talent, and treasure. Treasure is an important element of this. The margin. They need to help us fundraise. That's what we do, and so that is an expectation. And not only our staff expected to do fundraising, and we have a big department, and that's part of what we do, anyone associated with us needs to understand the importance that those dollars make in order for us to do the work that we're doing. So,
Hmm. I love it. I love the way you've been able to so cleanly describe this. It's obvious that you've been at it for a while and you've got some good marketing support too. What does the for-profit organization need to learn from a person like you?
hmm,
I'm not into what you do. I've got a business that makes widgets, whatever. What message do I need to hear from you that I haven't picked up on yet?
Hmm.
That would help my business, help my culture, help to do what we do.
We are truly similar. We are
Okay.
businesses, but we operate for a different reason. And just staying true to the reason why you exist, making widgets, creating an XYZ environment, but being true to that core is huge. And I think, we are more alike than we are different.
Even if my mission, let's say I'm a venture backed company or we're owned by Wall Street investors, that really, when you come down to it, yes, there is a kind of a dual mission where I'm here to make money for those that invested in us,
Hmm.
which then becomes a harder story to align to sometimes because we don't know what they're going to do with it, what good they're going to do in the world, right? But then the other side, of course, is we're producing something. We're producing a service. We're producing a product of some sort that somebody is going to get to experience and hopefully change their life for the better, right? So I guess what I'm hearing you say is that the one of the common things that we share, or that the business on the for-profit side should really hunker down on, is that purpose side, is the mission side.
Yeah,
That's where it all starts.
I think so. And leaning into your why. And what is the why that this organization, exists for? Leaning into that and do it really well. And if it's to make money for this or to help this industry, that's okay.
Yeah.
And not being fearful of saying that, but just really leaning into it because all three sectors serve an important role. We all need to work together. I'm, saying this third sector, this nonprofit that we're going to rebrand through a different lens, community benefit corporation, this
Hmm.
sector, we rely on those other two sectors. So
Right.
everybody has their lane and their role, and we can work together more often to do better. And that's really what I've learned. The idea of competition, it's healthy, it's nice. I'm competitive as well. But collaboration is really where I see where it happens.
Yeah.
Because when you collaborate and you know your why,
Yeah.
it we all rise up.
Because you're really well known in the Phoenix area. I know that people we have in common and say, yeah, well, we know Tori. We know what the great work she's doing. How have you been able to do that? I mean, I'm getting a word like the translator, the connector, um, that seems to be a way to describe your strengths or some of your strengths. The reframer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds like a Marvel character. I am the reframer, but you really do. You have this characteristic about reframing and connecting and aligning. And I also think about translating. I think about people who are very focused on finance, like say a CFO of an organization might struggle because they're thinking about the dollars and cents, but they don't necessarily connect how that relates to mission. And so in our coaching, we talk about how do you speak finance into mission, into purpose. So back to my question, I'm riffing. I'm sorry. You got me excited here about this topic. But what is it that you seem to be doing in the Phoenix Valley that is working relative to this idea about creating these alliances? How are you
Mm.
doing it? How are how do you connect? You name any nonprofit that you've worked with. How have you been able to find common ground?
Ah, I'm unapologetically trying to collaborate with them. And, I guess, I see the book above you, the Walk Your Talk. Um, what
Yes.
I what I feel right now is I wish more leaders, I'm definitely one of them. Like I'm very direct and people know where I'm at because what I say is what I do. And so
Mm.
really walking your talk is important to me. And this whole idea of collaboration over competition is important to me. This new building that I'm in that we built, it's not just for Child Crisis Arizona, it's bigger than the organization I work at. It truly is. And yes, I'm representing Child Crisis Arizona and children, but it's much bigger than that. It's when we've got, people working together and we've got all this beautiful space. And today, I've got, Phoenix Rescue Mission is in using my boardroom, and I invite in, we've got 25 nonprofit partners here, and this is their home, and they get to
Hmm.
do work with us here, and it's all for the greater good. And so I'm unapologetic about that and wanting to share resources with others. And it's, I believe that uh, others should have a beautiful space to work in. Employees also, that's one
Hmm.
thing that I'm really trying to change. I believe that employees should be paid a livable wage and even a competitive wage. And
Hmm.
so I'm just, I think I'm at the point in my career, and in my life where I don't apologize for the way I am and what's working. And it might be different than how others view it. And that's okay.
It's great. Do you have a book?
Not yet.
All right. So here's my question. Maybe we can round this out with this. So you're in Spain, which I know you love. You've got a month to just look at the countryside and eat good food and, you know, ponder your life and what you're all about and what you believe in. What is your book about?
Mm.
Or what's the title of your book?
Hmm. For me, I don't know the title. I'm going to go back to, you know, a life of purpose, no regrets, um, thinking large,
Hmm.
going for it, um, bringing joy.
Hmm.
You know, it's giving people opportunities, and it's really about sunshine. I'm a big believer in sunshine. I live in Arizona where we've got sun every day. It's hot some days, but
Yeah.
I need that sunshine. I need the happiness. Um, I feel like every day is a gift, and truly, what we can do to, make this world a better place is really important for all of us. What's our legacy? Are we making, um, are we helping or hurting? And
Hmm.
then picking which one, and how do you do that?
So, to the degree you can share, because I know maybe board members are listening to this as well, maybe some of your employees, but I just came from a retirement party for my brother back in Minneapolis this last weekend.
Mm,
And I was thinking about what's his next chapter going to be like, and he's working that out. You sort of mentioned, you know, working your way out of a job, right? You sort of hinted at that earlier on. So at some point you will, obviously. You just that's inevitable. There's a certain finite amount of minutes in one's life, right? But what is the longer term view for Tori? What does it look
yeah.
like in 10 years?
Ooh, in 10 years, I got to have a gap year in there, and that's
Okay.
probably going to be at 60. I'm having a gap year, and that gap year is going to be living abroad for a year. I think
Okay.
that's at 60, but
Okay.
okay. Maybe in
And
4
that's in
years.
what, 20 years or so?
Yeah, 4 years.
Yeah.
But so I would love to travel. For me is an opportunity to see life through a different lens, hear different languages, see different systems, um, look at different patterns, daily life, and I love that. And it's really soul awakening for me
Hmm.
to do that kind of a
Hmm.
thing. And so, yes, I want to have a gap year. I've never had that. I just think it would be amazing. And so that's going to happen around 60, I think. And what it looks like in my future 10 years from now, oh, I visualized that so many times. And so
I
I can
bet you
tell
do.
you it's really
Okay.
easy. I'm a master gardener in training. I've gone through
Oh.
my semester coursework. I am having a lot of time every day where my schedule is mine and I get to, you know, have time in my garden and see beautiful things and flowers and growing things and nurturing things, and so I get to spend time doing that. I think physical activity, I stand at my desk, I have a walking pad here, I don't sit much. But I don't walk and get it out, and I'm not as active as I'd like to be. So I'm doing that every day for a couple of hours. I am learning new things. I always have to be learning. And so I am, mastering the Spanish language perhaps in 10
Hmm.
years and learning another language. I
Hmm.
am learning how to cook something new. So I think for me, it's always about learning and growth, and 10 years from now, it's kind of like my garden. You know how you sometimes have tomatoes in one area and you always have tomatoes there, and sometimes you need to take a break and move the tomatoes to another area and have broccoli there because it's better for, the nutrients and to give the soil a rest and all those things. And so I think in 10 years from now, I'm doing that and I'm moving my garden around, which is myself.
Hmm.
I'm pouring into myself. I'm moving myself around to take in different environments, different cultures, and learning more about, my physical strength and, planning for the next, 30 years after that.
It sounds great. What's the what's the metaphor with gardening as it relates to leadership?
Hmm. I think everything has to do with gardening because that's how I think. And so sometimes when you lead, um, you pour a lot of time and energy into a program or a person or an area, and you get a failed crop.
Hmm.
Sometimes you get this incredible surprise, and it's better than you even thought. And from practice, I think I love gardening when I get volunteers. And when you garden, a volunteer is something in your garden that comes up that you didn't plant there. And maybe it's from a garden like across the yard, or
Yeah.
maybe it's because a bird came by and you've got a seed in your garden and it's just the perfect soil and the conditions. And so I like those volunteers,
Hmm.
and they're usually the strongest plant because they're over there in the rocks and not even in the garden bed. And so I think of leadership like gardening because sometimes you can work really hard and the aphids are going to come in, or you're going to get some type of a pest and you don't know how to, handle that. And so you got to like take all that, take everything out and start over. So you make, it's kind of like, painting. There are no mistakes, right? Bob
Right.
Ross, just happy accidents. I think gardening, it's very on purpose, but you get what you get and you have to make the best of it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like leadership.
A gardener just walked in, so she has to say hi.
Hi!
So those of you
And
who don't
you
know, this
do
is
have an
Joanne.
incredible garden,
Well, I know that's where we
Joanne.
hung out. So we will. I know we'll see you in a few weeks here. But she was just walking by, attending to our new dog that just joined the family here over the
Looking
last.
forward to seeing you.
Yeah,
Awesome. I am as well.
yeah. Well, Torrie, it's so great to talk to you, and you're doing such great work. I don't know, we just sort of hit it off when we met, and I know you certainly hit it off with Joanne as well. And your work is inspiring, and the great thing is that it's so authentic. It's not fake, and you're not fake, and I really appreciate what you do.
Dean, thank you. Well, I feel the same. It was just very serendipitous that we were able to meet and be in a different location. That's part of
Yeah,
my, rotation.
yeah. The gardening happened. We
And
volunteered,
yeah,
just
in
showed
Bend,
up.
Oregon. Yeah.
Yes,
How neat is that? And the world is really, truly a small place. And when you
yeah.
can put everything together, how beautiful is that when it works?
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you to also just let people know how to find you and how to find your organization.
Oh, My name is Torrie Taj. I'm on LinkedIn. Childcrisisaz.org is the website for the organization that I lead.
Fantastic. Thank you, Torrie.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you for listening to Leadovation with Dean Newlund. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to learn more about Dean or Mission Facilitators Leadership, go to mfileadership.com. That's mfileadership.com, or check the show notes. Reimagine, facilitate, flourish. Transform your leadership success with Leadovation.